Okay. So, I guess we should just go, right?
Yes. Hello, and welcome to the Hamsteak Podcast. This is episode 9. I'm Alex, and I have never read Homestuck before.
I'm Lydia, and I have read it before. So we're going to read it piece by piece and then tell you about it.
Mm-hmm.
So this week we read pages 2660 through 2769. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Awesome.
The beginning of Act 3.
I am the person who... No, that's not through the beginning of Act 3.
No, that is the beginning of Act 3, I said.
Oh, it is. We're in Act 3. That's
Yes.
where we are. We're in Act 3. God, the first two acts are so short. Yeah, we're going to be in Act 3 for, I want to say... I don't remember exactly, and I can't be bothered to look it up, but, like, the next 4 or 5 episodes, I think.
Sure.
Like, including this one. And then we're going to go into an intermission, and it's going to be exciting.
Nice.
So, this is... I mean, I think I say every episode, like, and this is where it gets, like, big and weird, but, like, it just keeps, like, ramping up.
Right.
Can you tell I like this comic? Okay. But so we open up this week on finally, like, fully revealing our dear friend Gigi, who has still yet to get a name.
Yeah. So, she's asleep on the floor.
She is, as we will later find out, prone... She enjoys sudden fits of narcolepsy, which I actually take a little bit of issue with, because narcolepsy is actually, like, pretty debilitating.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess if you assume that this is a different sort of... I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I assumed that it was some kind of magical narcolepsy.
Yeah, it's... That honestly doesn't... Whatever.
That's not much better.
It's neither here nor there.
Alright.
But she's slumbering peacefully. There's a pumpkin next to her that should look familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Because very soon it's about to get purified away.
Yes.
Or, excuse me, it's going to get disappearified here, and it's going to appearify in the future in the little compoundy dealy with the wayward vagabond.
Yes.
He's going to eat it.
So, in the future, in the past.
Right, in the future that we've already read about. In the narrative past.
Yes.
It's going to disappear. Which apparently is something that happens quite frequently to the pumpkins.
Yeah, the pumpkins seem to, as soon as they ripen in this little garden, they disappear.
Yeah, which is a shame, because Jade really loves to grow... Oops, I named her.
That's alright, because that's, like, on these pages.
Yeah. So we briefly identify her as Farm Sink Buttless.
Yes.
Which is my fave. And then, but then she chides us for, in her sleep, she's holding a note that chides us for calling her that.
Exactly.
And then she tells us her name via note while sleeping.
It's Jade Harley.
Yeah. Oh, I also want to talk about, a little bit briefly, what you can figure out if you assume, which I think makes sense. I mean, yeah, it's logical. So if you assume correctly that the pumpkin that disappears in this scene is the pumpkin that appears with WV, you can look at the coordinates on the console on page 2635, where he purifies it from, and actually look up where she lives.
Oh.
Yeah, which is in the ocean on a volcanic island about 50 miles north of Winslow Reef, Kiribati, and 150 miles southeast of Baker Island. And one more thing. Wait a minute. I'm gonna do the thing. She is... You have to zoom really far out to see anything, which is kind of cool. So she lives... I mean, the nearest real landmark is she's, like, northeast of Australia and, like, Papua New Guinea, but, like, she's not that close.
Not close to it, yeah.
She's really not close to anything. I'm pretty sure Hussey stuck his finger right in the middle of, like, the Pacific Ocean.
Sure. So there's no real-world island at that coordinate?
There's no real island, no.
Yeah, okay.
And then, which makes sense, because we can see, like, dinosaurs flying over it at one point, I think, so... And so I spent a ridiculous amount of time trying to figure this out, but her time zone, she's actually just north of the International Dateline. So she's on UTC -12 time, based on that timestamp on page 2635.
Which is like the last time zone?
Yeah. So if it's 12:13 at that moment when the pumpkin gets disappearified, it's 4:13 for John in the Pacific Northwest. So we're meeting her at the same time as all the other kids.
Right. Well, I think we already established that. It goes back to the exact same moment, right?
Okay, fine. Like, I want credit.
Thank you for doing the math.
It was so stupid. I mean, like, I spent a bunch of time doing it, and then I ended up looking it up in the wiki, and learned it all in like 2 seconds anyway.
Well, no, sometimes it's really good to go the long way around and figure stuff out for yourself.
You know what? You're right. Maybe it was the friends we made along the way.
So, what was I saying? Oh, right. So a couple weeks ago, I got the name Roxy Lalonde spoiled for me as a Homestuck character, and I thought that was the fourth child that we were going to meet this week. But it wasn't. It was another person who we'll meet later on. So it was still a surprise for me to learn Jade's name, which was nice.
Nice. Yeah, okay. She has an interesting... But yeah, okay, we're not going to meet Roxy for a good long time. But you're going to like her a lot, I think, when you do meet her.
Okay.
I love her. I love every single girl in Homestuck.
Oh.
Just unequivocally. But yeah. Tell us about... What?
Are they your homegirls?
They're not all my homegirls, but...
But they're your Homestuck girls.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was doing.
I got hung up on how much I would never ever use the word homegirl ever.
Yeah, no one would.
Yeah. Tell us about her. Tell us some more about Jade, because you had a lot more to say about her than I did.
Yeah, I took some notes about her appearance. She has a floor-length skirt that it looks like it's made of denim, and she also wears like Adidas or like Reebok sports shoes with stripes on them, which is a really good combo.
She's such a nerd.
Yeah, and so her shirt starts off with a blue pumpkin on it, but it turns out that her shirt is randomized, and like her wardrobe-atron or whatever her machine is.
Wardrobe-ifier.
Wardrobe-ifier.
Not that it's ever going to be important again.
Because all these machines have weird names for no reason. It was set on shuffle, so like her shirt keeps changing. But then a bit later on, we see she chooses 3 shirts, and they're actually like a poll that was done with the audience, which is cute.
She chooses 3 shirts?
Yeah.
No, she chooses 1.
She selects 3, but I think just like the top one. We'll get to that later.
She just picks the one atom, and then that's all it is for the rest of the story.
Okay.
Yeah. But you're right. They did a poll, and something like 1,600 people voted on what this girl's shirt should have on it. So,
is that all?
Is that all?
1,600 doesn't seem like a lot. I thought Homestuck was a lot bigger than that, even at the beginning.
No, it got a lot bigger.
Huh.
After that. And you also have to consider, like, poll response rates. Not everybody votes in the poll.
Yeah, but this is really important.
Yeah. And, like, I feel like 1,700 unique hits is, like, non-negligible.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, and she also has these colorful reminders, which are just basically string or something on her fingers. Yeah. And she has one reminding her it's John's birthday, and then she has another one reminding her it's John's birthday, but in a different way, which is really cute.
Yes. And it's important
Ah,
that those mean those things, and we're not gonna really figure out why for a while.
okay. So we also get to play the flute as Jade with every single keyboard key.
Except for the Z key, which makes her fall asleep.
Oh no, I didn't hit that.
Yeah. Which I thought
But you
was
can
a
also,
cute Easter egg.
yeah, it was cute. The whole thing was cute. I didn't know about that.
Mm.
But you can also play like a bunch of them at once, and she just like spasms around the screen.
Yeah, if you just, all I ever do on that page is just key smash, and it's very pleasing.
Mm.
She can't actually, like, the conceit is, like, you're supposed to think, like, oh, it's like Rose, like, playing her violin or whatever, but she picks up this flute and, like, can't do fuck all with it.
Yeah, and it turns out she doesn't even play the flute.
Yeah. Okay, so wait, so, you have something to say about how she's not in Australia?
Oh, no, yeah, because we established last week that she's not in Australia.
Right. But you were closer than I had thought.
Yeah, I don't remember how I got to that.
I think it was just arbitrary.
Yeah.
Or, like, based on the environs.
Yeah. So she lives somewhere that she falls asleep without remembering, and things appear and disappear for no apparent reason. So, like, she lives in some kind of weird space, is my feeling.
Yeah, weird stuff happens around her a lot. There's reasons.
And she also has, so for her fetch modus, the mechanic with which she stores and gets items, she has a whole bunch based on board games.
Yeah.
Like Operation and Monopoly. I assume that most of these are just like gags and will never actually be used as viable options.
Nope.
But also some of them will be used, and she starts by equipping her guess modus, which splits every item into 2 cards, and she has to get 2 matching cards. But since she's psychic, she can just get them normally with that. She's just like, oh, I get everything on the first try. I wonder why.
Yeah, she's like... The way that she deals with her being psychic is very, like, blithe.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny. She's just like, I just know things. It's
Mm-hmm.
fine. 20... I wrote just the word future at some point, and I don't remember why, and I need to find out. Oh, select memory. So I must have, like, subconsciously wrote that or something, because that actually does come up again a long way from now.
Oh, okay.
In a different sense. She also is the first character we've seen to actually, you know how, like, every time you meet a kid, you have to suggest them to do, like, I think with John, it's squawk like an imbecile and shit on your desk.
Yeah.
And none of them will do it, and Jade's like, you tell Jade, like, squeal like a pig and fertilize some plants. And she's like, I'm not going to do it. And then she does it.
Yeah.
She actually does, like, run around and fertilize plants.
It's just like, this is fun. She is a sweetheart.
Yeah. And then we see more of her, her atrium.
Yeah.
It's so pretty.
It is. So there's these really interesting kind of geometric, non-realistic flowers, and also a bunch of pumpkins and other plants. And it's just very, very nice. It's in this, like, glass, like a greenhouse, basically. And then it turns out that there's multiple rooms of this.
Yeah, it's so big, and it's so pretty, and I really like the art here, because it's a mix of, like, geometric, like, sort of abstract-looking flowers, and then, like, what Hussey will do sometimes for elements of these panels is, like, just, like, Google image stuff, but then, like, crank the contrast up and put it in black and white.
Yeah, so
but then recolor it?
Yeah, I feel like there's a name for what he's doing, like a Photoshop technique. But it's just like a pixelated black and white image, but then he colors them.
like very brightly saturated colors, and so it's this mix of like hand drawn and like found art, and like it's so like the color. I'm a sucker for extremely bright colors, so I'm just like I want to spend all my time in this atrium.
That's interesting because I find it visually interesting, but I don't think I could like spend a minute in that physical space.
Oh, really?
Like those like bright colors and like weird pixelated stuff. Like I couldn't live there personally.
Oh man, I wouldn't want to live in that room, but I'd like if I had that room in my house, I would want to live in that room. What am I saying? I'd set up a cot right in the middle, and like, oh my god, it'd be so clutch. Anyway, we may have different tastes in decor.
Yeah, I think so.
At that point, I finally noticed that her shirt had been changing. It kind of took me a while to pick up on it.
Yeah, I didn't notice until she went up to her wardrobe afire. But what I did notice in her living space is that there's a symbol on the floor, similar to, but not exactly, the Triple Star of David that was seen with WV last time. And it turns out it's a teleporter, but it's called a transportalator.
It's called a transportalizer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh my god.
I mistyped that. Okay.
You're forgiven.
Transportalizer. No. Transportalator.
No.
Doesn't matter. And then you've written down, modus fun aside, you feel it isn't possible to have too many fresh fruits and vegetables on hand. Because Jade goes around and just picks some fruit to fill her modus.
She picks little fruits that grow on her little bonsai trees, which isn't technically accurate because bonsai trees grow full-size fruit. But she picks some tiny fruits and just wants to carry them around with her, and I think that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know, I love the gag of how they introduce these transportalizers, which is just the action is like, Jade, go downstairs. And then you click on that, and all you see is, like, a flash of green flame, and she disappears, and the caption is just, you hardly ever use the stairs.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny.
So then we see Jade's room, which is brightly colored and hellacious. And I love it.
Hellacious?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
I mean, I don't know. Let's look up the definition, because I just use it as, like, a lot. It's like real out there and kind of terrible, but very great, bad, or overwhelming.
Wow.
There was this hellacious hailstorm.
So, like, egregious.
Yeah. But, like, instead of talking about, like, an effect, it's referring to, like, a state.
I see, okay.
More. And she's got, so what does she have going on? She's got a lot going on in her room.
She's got, a lot going on. There's puppets and toys that look like Smuppets, but not quite. Like, they're definitely different. Mostly they don't have, like, the big dong noses.
The absence of dong noses is notable and laudable.
Mm-hmm. There's also a poster that has Sweet Bro and Hella Jeff art, but, like, photoshopped to be, like, a lion and another animal.
Signed.
It's signed?
Yeah, it was signed and sent to her by TG.
Oh, wow.
AKA Dave. Turn tech godhead.
Right. Yeah, so she has a lot of interests, which include anthropomorphic animals, and markswomanship.
Yes.
Which is weird to me. That someone would just, like, casually be into... Like, she specifies, like, I could never hurt an animal, but I just like shooting things. Which is just weird to me as, like, a baby and also a Canadian.
What do you mean as a baby?
Just, like, guns are very, like, alien to me, I guess. Anyway.
Anywho.
So, what is the becquerel?
So the becquerel... Yeah.
Becquerel? Becquerel.
You would know how to pronounce it better than I would. I don't French.
I don't think it's a French word.
Okay.
Oh, or, no, I guess it is.
I think it's an English last name derived from French.
Sure.
Like, of French origin. I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Anyway, it's a unit of radioactivity.
Oh.
So it's basically, I was reading about it a little bit. They developed it to prevent math errors that arise when you do math involving, like, inverse seconds, so, like, seconds to the -1. Because it's a unit of how many radioactivity events happen in a second. So if you're doing, like, some number to an exponent, seconds to the -1, and then you, like, do, like, exponent math gets weird, and, like, it's radioactivity, so, like, you don't want to do your math wrong, because, like, you could kill yourself.
Okay.
What?
Math.
Yeah, when you, like, add and multiply exponents together, if you read the seconds to the -1, if you read the -1 on the seconds, I mean, as, like, an actual exponent and not just, like, an indicator of the unit, it's a problem. So they were like, instead of writing seconds to the -1, let's introduce this unit, the becquerel. And that will mean this is how many times a nucleus decays in some way in a given body in a given second. It's like hertz, but instead of being, like, periodic phenomena happening within a second, it's aperiodic, and it just has to do with radioactivity.
Okay.
Yep.
So Jade Specibus is a gun, which...
You're so fazed by this.
Mostly just... No, that note is just because it's funny, because my answer for Specibus is gun.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So then Jade spends a while thinking about her furry posters, and she, like, there's, like, a cute little, like, rhapsodic, like, interlude about her, like, imagining, like, going and, like, turning into a wolf and, like, running around with the wolves or whatever, and then the last line is just, you eat a weird bug and don't even care. And I love it. And, like, he pokes fun at furries, but, like, in such a charitable way. Like, he's so charitable to the, like, innocent, like, kids on these, like, forums and whatever who are just like, yeah, I want to be a cat person.
Uh-huh.
And they even, like, kind of get at that later on when she's digging around. Someone, supposedly the reader, like, says, like, oh, like, go get your fursuit or whatever. And
she's like, why would I ever dress up like an animal? I just want to respect them.
Yeah, it's so, like, oh.
Yeah.
Jade. Because I get that. I feel like every, like, little girl is like, oh, what if I was, like, a wolf person for, like, 2 seconds at some point in their lives?
Oh, every kid, for sure. So she has a chest full of fortune-telling...
Garbage.
Apparatus, yeah. Including a book called Problem Sooth, which got a cackle out of me.
Yeah, it's pea clever. Problem Sleuth being, if you're just picking up with us, the comic that Hussey did before he started Homestuck. Mm-hmm. So it's another MS Paint adventure.
Yeah. She also has, like, a magic 8-ball, which is garbage.
Mm-hmm. Which, yeah, okay, sorry, you go first.
She doesn't, like, she wants to destroy, but she's afraid to because she's superstitious.
Right. So she's like, it's garbage because it's always wrong when I ask it things that I know the answer to. Like, is today my friend John's birthday? Which it is, but it says not exactly. Mm-hmm. The magic 8-ball is right.
Yeah, I figured.
They do lay it on pretty thick, but...
Do you mean, like, metatextually? Like, this is taking place not on John's birthday?
Oh, no. I mean, literally, it's not exactly his birthday.
Is that a spoiler if you explain that to me?
Yeah, I can't.
Okay.
It's such a spoiler.
Alright. So she has this magic 8-ball, which she thinks is wrong at the time, but might be right all the time. But she also has an opaque white magic 8-ball, mm-hmm. which she's like, this is always right, but you can't see what it says because it's like a solid ball, and the thing inside is not visible.
So it's a magic cue ball that is frighteningly specific and always accurate.
But you can never see.
But you can never see it. This gag won't pay, I went and counted. This gag won't pay off for 1,400 pages, but it's really good when it does.
Okay.
So then we're exploring the rest of Jade's room, and she, like, does nuclear physics. She, like, builds nuclear technologies.
Uh-huh.
Which I love.
Yeah, and so she's like a tinkerer. And since she's psychic, she just always gets things right on the first try. Like when she's building nuclear gadgets, which is pretty good. It's pretty good not to get those wrong.
Pretty good, and also, but, like, she's just got little, like, lumps of radioactive material sitting around her bedroom.
Uh-huh.
Which is, like, yikes. I think the laws of radioactivity are a little bit different in this comic.
Yeah, considering WV, like, ate a lump of uranium.
Yes.
But also, she's feeding... So she cooks some steak, but she cooks it radioactive to feed her pet, Becquerel, who I guess eats radioactivity.
Yep. She irradiates a steak. And then, Jade, like, breaks the fourth wall and, like, allows you to try to use her modus.
Mm-hmm. So she's trying to get her cooking gadget out, but instead, we, I guess, as the proverbial you, who is interacting with her, with a mouse, with a cursor, just selects all of her fruits, which have become alive and jittery.
Yeah.
Like they have little faces and they're dancing around.
Yeah. Those fruit images get reused so many times and they never stop being funny to me.
That's good. So she puts them in her refrigerator, which is a really weird gag. All her, like, gadgets and technology are, like, weird joke names of the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
But refrigerator is supposed to be the weird joke name of the in-universe normal name, which is, like, refrigerator.
Refrigifiificator.
Yeah, there you go. Refrigifiificator.
Yep.
So that's a really dumb joke, but I love it.
Yeah, it's really funny, and then we sort of get through a gag, and at one point Jade is beginning to regret letting you break the fourth wall to do this. And at that point, for, like, kind of the rest of our time with Jade, I read all the narration in, if you've ever seen that, like, BuzzFeed video, The Perfect Guide to Holiday Etiquette.
Oh, is that the Say Frank video?
No, it's the one where it's like, Billy.
Yeah, that's Say Frank. He's the, like, producer of BuzzFeed video.
Billy has made an indentation in his mesh.
Yeah, that's Say Frank. He's a very good vlogger, but for the past couple of years, he's just been working for BuzzFeed.
Nice.
So I guess he puts out more videos than anyone else, but he's just not in many of them.
I see.
Which is sad, because he's very funny, as you can tell.
It's really funny. I'm always like, it's a fucking BuzzFeed video. And then it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's not a BuzzFeed video, though. It's like his auteur project for them.
Yeah.
Billy. His mash.
Billy is sad.
Billy doesn't have any friends. Okay, back to Homesteak.
So back in Homestuck, Andrew Hussey drops yet another R-slur.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. It's not even, like, funny or necessary. I mean, like, it's never funny, but it's, like, not even, like, remote, like,
Yeah, there's no... It's just a non sequitur.
It's just random humor. I mean, like, that's kind of always what it is. It's like, ha ha ha, I trotted out an offensive word. But, like, Are you 12? You're clearly not 12.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. Sorry, I need to, I guess, get better at, like, I don't know.
No, we're gonna mention that and call him out for it every time it happens.
Yeah. Because I think it happens decreasingly frequently, but it just...
Because it happened, I think, a couple times in, like, the first 2 readings.
Yeah. Yeah, Dave drops a different slur later in this reading, too. It's not good. But, yep. So, yeah, Jade is apparently resistant to radiation. And then she picks up her bass.
Mm-hmm. And we get a very, very lovely bass line.
Mm-hmm.
And animation, which zooms out to show our whole house, which is really interesting. It's like... how would you describe it, Lydia?
They are very tall, narrow, cylindrical towers with bulbs on the top, and a bridge sticking out near the top with a similar but much smaller version of the tower attached, vertical, hanging in midair with another little bulb on top. And that's, I believe, what Jay's room is in. Yeah.
And then at the very bottom, there's the greenhouse, which is like kind of 4 square rooms jutting out from the tower at right angles.
Right.
With glass, like glass rooms. And that's all in the shadow of the volcano on the side of the crater with the frog temple in it that we saw last time.
Yep. The frog temple from, like, before there was life on Earth. So that's pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah. So she's saying that she's like, she has to go out and run errands.
Mm-hmm.
But like, where is she going to run errands?
She has to feed Beckroll.
But where does she get food?
Don't worry about it. I think the implication is meant to be that the refrigerator is actually generating the food.
Okay, but how does...
I mean, she is also,
anyway.
like, she grows food in her garden, and she, like, knows how to hunt, so maybe
she knows how to... But she doesn't hunt, though.
Well, she doesn't turn it on innocent animals, but maybe she hunts for food.
she hunts criminal animals?
I don't know.
She hunts guilty animals.
People who hunt for food have bizarre logics, but I mean, like, I really wouldn't be surprised if that was how she was getting this steak.
She hunts animals who have sinned.
Something, blah, blah, circle of life. I don't know.
Sure.
Oh, and we see a blue package parachuting down to her, which blue is
That's
John's
right.
color, so it's
John's there we go.
color.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
But she's wearing a blue shirt, and John's wearing a green shirt.
Yeah.
Is that, like, their connection? Like, because the two of them are similar in design, and what were you saying before? Like, they're similar in personality?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I can't touch that with a 10-foot pole because it's spoilers, but it's good that you're noticing. So then Jade opens her computer, which she carries around in a cute little lunchbox.
She does.
Which she can do because it's just like a little, like, gear-shaped object that spawns this, like, big holographic virtual environment.
Exactly.
That takes over her whole room. It's really pretty. And then we see her open up. So, okay, first thing is her browser is Echidna.
Mm-hmm.
Have we seen Echidna yet?
No.
Okay, so her browser is Echidna.
Is that a mythical thing or just the animal?
I believe we have seen Echidna before. I think that's Rose's browser, too, but...
I don't think so.
Okay. You're right. No, we wouldn't have seen her. I'm correct on these correspondences.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's Echidna.
Okay.
I could look up the mythological significance, but it's not really important.
So you have a little spiel here on 2008 era UIs. So please elaborate.
Oh, yeah, so all I was going to say is I vividly remember people talking about flat UI a couple years ago when it started really becoming a buzzword, and I'm not going to put a date on it because I don't follow this stuff super closely, so I don't know exactly when that was, but I believe it was around 2010. I did put a date on it.
I think you're right. Something like that.
Yeah, so, like, long enough now that, like, we don't really think about it, but I definitely remember when it was, like, when it first came out, and I was like, this looks like shit, and I hate it. And now, I look at, like
old UI with, like, drop shadows and, like,
shine and, like, 3D metaphors,
exactly.
sort of.
Exactly.
And it's just like, God, oh.
And it's also low resolution, too.
Right, yeah, so it's this, like, it's essentially pixel art.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh boy. You tried.
Yeah, and there's so much, skeuomorphism, like...
What?
That's the word, right? It's the word for when you make a digital thing look like the physical thing, like having a notebook, like a note taking app that looks like a notepad in real life with like grain.
Right. How
Or
like
like
the Notes app in iPhone used to have the stupid font.
Yeah, or like a torn like page at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's called skeuomorphism.
Okay.
And like that used to be like before Apple went flat UI.
Yeah.
They were really pushing that. Like the old calendar app had like a leather border.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cute. Tedious but cute. So yeah, I want to talk a bunch about Pester Chum because first of all, yeah, it's enamel. I love the UI conversation. I love how rapidly it dated itself.
Yeah.
Because it was definitely cutting edge at the time, and it's so not now. The other thing is, I can't elaborate on this for Alex's benefit, but if you're a return reader, the handles we see in the troll slum are Carcinogeneticist, Arachnid's Grip, Twin Armageddons, Terminally Capricious, Caligula's Aquarium, and presumably a bunch more. Like, the scroll bar is very small, so it looks like there are a lot of them. I had forgotten how many of them were contacting her.
Okay.
That's all I can say.
All right. I'm not going to touch that.
It was nice to see them, though.
So we see that she has gotten a bunch of messages from Dave, who was trying to contact her while she was asleep, but then just kind of started talking to himself.
Right, he seems to do that when the people he's trying to talk to aren't there. He does that with Dave. He does that with John, and I think he does that with Rose, too.
Yeah.
And Rose does that with him, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
They're funny. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so he, like, drops a homophobic slur right in the beginning of it, but, like, that is funny. Completely nonsensical. He, like, does this, like, bizarrely, like... I can't tell. He, like, I think starts it as, like, an ironic bit and then just gets... He like, ironically creates a persona and then, like, gets more and more involved in the design of this persona.
Yeah.
I think he describes it as, like, some, like, Cirque du Soleil back-arching fuck. Or something like that. I don't know.
Something like that. So, I think... I keep calling her Gigi. Jade just kind of ignores Dave, I think.
Yeah.
For now. And she goes to check mspaintadventures.com. And there's an update. And it's just like a shitty drawing of John, like sitting outside his house with a shitty drawing of the pogo stick. And so it seems like there's like an in-universe, like, shitty version of Homestuck comic going on online.
Yeah, so if you look at the action underneath that is end intermission, so the implication is that the shitty Homestuck is the intermissions of the Midnight Crew.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So then we have a Midnight Crew animation, and I still don't really know how to parse these. Like, Lydia has mentioned how they kind of tie in with the main comic. But, Lydia, is there anything interesting that we should note in this animation?
Just that we get their names, which are all... I still don't understand Heart's boxcar. That still annoys me. Boxcar? I don't...
Well, he's like an insectoid, right?
They all are. But, like...
So he can have whatever name he wants.
I know, but I mean, we'll meet them later. There is more ridiculous stuff going on than that. I actually love them, but we meet their enemies, the Felt, who all have hats with numbers and designs that correspond with like billiard balls.
Okay.
And then meanwhile, all 4 of the Midnight Crew correspond to suits and a deck of cards.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have a lot of like classic game metaphors, right? So we have the chess metaphor for the battlefield up in Skya.
Right.
We have the playing cards metaphor. We have the billiards metaphor. I think those are the 3 big ones so far, but pay attention to those because they all stay important.
Nice.
Yep.
So then we cut to Dave's strife, but it's not with his brother, it's with Cal, the puppet, who is not alive at all. What's happening is Bro is moving so fast that he's essentially manipulating Cal around, and it's like Dave is fighting a live-action stop-motion puppet.
That is such a great, concise way to describe it. Yeah, it is live-action stop-motion. I hesitate to say that Cal is not alive, but
okay,
at least here he's being...
he doesn't seem to move of his own volition.
Not right now, he doesn't.
Okay. Well, so far in the comic, it seemed like every time he moves, it's the Bro doing it.
You're not wrong.
So as far as I know, he does not move of his own volition.
Right. So Dave gets his shit wrecked by this puppet, essentially, to a great track. I also want to mention that before, when Dave was sort of talking to Jade as she was asleep, he sent her. They apparently send music back and forth, and they collaborate on tracks and stuff. It's really cute.
Oh yeah, yeah. I didn't have a chance to listen to this music player. I assume that all these remixes are listenable. Mm-hmm. I just haven't had a chance to listen to it all, but I probably will after we record. Yeah,
they're cute. They bear a listen.
Nice. I think it's really cute that when Jade does respond to Dave, she code switches to be like, "Oh, hey, bro," and then she laughs.
Yeah, she's just making fun of how he talks.
Yeah.
Hey, bro, haha, sup, or whatever, and
yeah, exactly.
She can't keep a straight face. She can't do it.
Yeah, it's cute.
But so then we switch over to a conversation. I think this is an old conversation between Rose and Jade, where Rose is like, "I'm not so sure that this is. I need your future forecasting advice." Mm-hmm. And I know you said this was the day we were all going to. I think she said we were all going to play a game together. Mm-hmm. Right? And it was going to change everything, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to double check my quotation.
Yeah, she said it was going to change everything, and Jade didn't know the name of the game.
Right.
But when this conversation happens, Rose has received the game, and so has John. So it was probably not actually in the past, I think.
Oh yeah, I think we are watching this unfold.
Yeah.
Anyway, I also just love them talking to each other. This comic has its problems, obviously, but it passes the Bechdel test with flying colors, which I think it deserves a lot of credit for. Because I feel like Rose and Jade and all the other girls we're going to meet are some of the most real feeling contemporary teen girl characters I maybe have ever read.
Sure. Nice.
Yeah, I really love them. I really love how they're characterized. I really love how they interact with each other. They're supportive, and I don't know, Jade is just it's just, she can't tell her everything, but she's just be patient and be brave and everything will be okay.
Yeah. So I really like Jade's whole deal with kind of being the prophet of the group. She's kind of directing them in where how to act in the future. but she's just doing it so like sweetly, and like she's like their bubbly prophet. She's like, oh, like I know this doesn't make sense, but I believe in you, and I know that we can do this.
Yeah, she's really like, she's extremely like posy.
Yeah, and her typing style is so posy, like it's so like 10 exclamation points and 5 hearts, and like maybe some people don't like that, but I genuinely love like it. That just makes everything feel so genuine to me.
Yeah. Which I think is interesting, because like I comment on this a little bit later. I can remember from my like earlier reads of this comic always finding, always reading this kind of like desperation and loneliness into Jade.
Oh yeah, I can see that too.
Yeah, because like she lives like essentially all alone. Like I mean she has her guardian there, but they don't seem to interact very much. And you know, it's such a remote island. Like she obviously doesn't have any like real life like friends.
Mm-hmm.
And that like had seemed so sad and like isolated to me.
Yeah.
But I think on rereading it, like I don't think she's meant to be read that way. I think you can read that into her, and I don't think that that's an invalid reading. I think that's an interesting reading. But the way that I'm reading her this time is like just she like is very genuine. Like she is very secure in herself and like not necessarily lonely. Like this is all she's ever known, and so she is actually pretty comfortable and like seems to be like totally thriving. Like
right.
So I don't know. And she's clearly like I read her like effusive like enthusiasm and like joy and compassion and stuff as a lot more genuine.
Yeah.
Or not genuine, but like a lot less desperate.
Sure. Yeah, good. Well, I'm glad that your
Yep.
your relationship with her is so nuanced.
Thanks. I'm glad my relationship with this fictional character is so nuanced too. Anyway, meanwhile, Rose is climbing down this. She grabs her taxidermied cat and scuttles down the ladder into this mysterious greenishly lit.
Yeah. So she was stuck in the mausoleum for a while.
Meowsauleum.
Well, that isn't canonical. That's just my pun. Or is that from the comic?
No, you just made that up.
Okay. But yeah, so the generator caught fire, and then her mom in the house like opened a secret panel under the coffin or sarcophagus, and that seems to be a tunnel that leads to the laboratory next door.
Right, but before we get to sorry, go ahead.
It just seems Rose seems very unfazed by this, that there's a tunnel on her property that goes next door.
I mean, like, think about, like, A, where she lives, like, and B, like, the kind of person that her mom is. Like, you know? And C,
I don't really know what kind of person her mom is, but I guess.
Well, like, they live in, like, a mansion on top of a waterfall in, like, the secluded woods, and her mom is, like, a reclusive alcoholic, and, like...
Okay.
Does things like buy 12-foot wizard statues to put in the living room.
Right.
Like, and like builds a mausoleum for her taxidermied cat. Like, how, you know, I feel like this is not the most surprising thing Rose has ever discovered.
Fair enough.
Then we have a little story file where we see the Peregrine Mendicant.
Mm-hmm.
Where this giant worm comes out of the sort of like apple base that fell off of a giant white tree in the WV Ascend that we watched last time.
Yes, and this is the location of John's house in the past, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
And so this giant metal worm comes out and starts chomping on one of the mailboxes that she's pushing around in her little cart.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, and she reaches for this like very like
ornate black sword.
Yeah, it's totally incongruous with her surroundings. Like, everything is totally, like, beat up and, like, destroyed and...
But it made sense to me. Like, it didn't feel out of place for her to have this, like, ancient sword that she's found somewhere.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Wandering.
I mean, like, I love the way it looks.
Yeah.
So she gets ready to go fight this worm, and then we get a game fac that John writes. He like adds to the game fac. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't say outright that it was John, but that's kind of by process of elimination who I figured it was.
Oh, yeah. I think he signs it at the end.
Well, he signs it with an ASCII drawing of the Slimer worm that he wears. I don't think he signs his name.
Oh, okay.
But he also, I think he name drops, like, the other 3 characters that we've met so far. So he's like, it's him.
Right. It's also pretty clear from his typing style.
Yeah, exactly. So, so he's just adding some info to the game fac, and he's like, I don't know if anyone's, like, alive still, or if anyone's just not reading this, but I'll just, like, put some more info about all these weird, like, machines that are in this weird game that I'm stuck in.
Yeah, go ahead.
So he kind of explains, like, he's like, in my, as an amateur hacker, I figured out that the punch cards, like the punch codes that go on the capture log cards are like an encryption pattern. So he kind of reverse engineers how they work, which is a cool detail, but I have no interest in seeing if he's correct or not.
Yeah, those details honestly aren't that important.
Yeah. It feels, I mean, like we said before, it's kind of the joke that Hussey put all the work into that when no one's going to bother following up on it.
Right. I mean, the system itself is fairly simple, but, like, then he put all the work in to, like, describe it in excruciating detail.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty funny. But yeah, those details honestly are not that important for the future.
Okay.
But it does help you kind of understand what's going on a little bit better. But so I just wanted to point out that Hussey is clearly even capable of calling people, like, big idiots without, like, dropping really offensive slurs.
Right, yeah.
He uses, the phrase that he uses is whopping stupid horsebutt, which is really which is, like, actually genuinely funny instead of offensive.
Mm.
Oi.
Yeah.
Use a brain cell.
He'll get better. But so there's a link at the bottom of the page to a site to make your own punch card.
It doesn't work.
Designs, but you say it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. I mean, like, you can, like, make it punch the design, but then you can't actually, like, view the result because it's on, I guess, Gancro's website.
Okay.
Which is no longer active, sadly.
Mm-hmm.
So then we see this, we're back to Rose in the underground lab, question mark? Yeah. We do later find out it's a lab. And up high, there's this huge sign that just says SN, and there's the atomic symbol from Jade's shirt, and then the sort of, like, spirograph Skya symbol sort of embedded in the S.
Right.
So there's that.
Yes.
And then she moves into the lab, and we zoom out on this grid of blinking green cubes wedged tightly together.
Yeah, it's very kind of unsettling, nauseous, flickering green.
So I actually find it comforting.
Oh, really?
The family business is fixing computers, so, like spending time with my dad, or like just quietly, like a lot of, like, pleasant, like, you know, like the times that you spend just sort of, like, by yourself and not really with any responsibility as, like, a kid and a teen. I like a lot of those times, or not a lot of those times, but some memorable ones for me were spent, like, in server rooms, where it's kind of fun to just, like, watch the lights or whatever. So it's actually like, oh.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
We have such different responses to the colors in this comic, but I like that.
It's interesting. It makes for good discussion.
Yes. I find this flickering green very, very alarming. Like, I don't feel safe here.
I love it. I don't think you're supposed to.
Yeah.
I believe that's the desired effect, but I'm just like, yes. She is safe now. No one will ask her to fix their printer here.
Yes. So, meanwhile, meanwhile in the past, Jade is, she tries to go to, like, she wants to go to the bottom of the tower, but she can only go so far with the, transportalizer. She has to go down the last few flights of stairs. And so we see a bunch of, Grandpa's, collection. And so, kind of in the way that every Guardian so far has had a thing that they collect. The first thing we see is taxidermied animals, like game trophies. But then she goes down another flight of stairs, and there's also suits of armor. And then down another flight of stairs, there's also desiccated mummies.
Yep.
And then at the bottom, there's all those things, plus sun-bleached, faded beauty posters, like from spas that he apparently raids as often as he raids like ancient temples for these like blue bleached like 70s or 80s posters of women with perms.
Mm-hmm.
And these are a comforting presence in Jade's life. They are her sisters. And that is extremely, extremely saddening.
Yeah, it really depends on what kind of a mood you're in when you read this, how you read that. But yeah, he calls them his beauties.
Yeah.
And
he like tells her to like aspire to be like them.
Yeah. Which, I mean, obviously isn't just like a unidimensional, like you need to be like glamorous or whatever. Like he also like trained her to like be a markswoman and like insist that she not like leave the house without her gun or whatever, and like is trying to like sculpt her into an adventuress or whatever, but
right.
I don't know, in some abstract way anyway. He's trying to have her aspire to them. I'd also like to point out that they are a gag, which will come back around in a little over 3,300 pages.
Wow.
And you'll sort of see it coming, but it's not as gratifying as the other one, the other, like, slow burn gag, but it's pretty good.
Okay.
It's funny how it's done.
So your next note is just, yes, all caps. What is that for?
I don't remember exactly why. Let's find out. Oh, so I put yes because it's Jade, complete your descent. And you click the action, and it's just a close-up of this fucking, like, generic-looking, like, monster face. Like, it's just, like, two wide-set eyes with no expression whatsoever. And, like, a very neutral, but, like, wide-open mouth full of, like, spiky teeth. And it looks like, it kind of looks like it's, like, this, it's clearly an enormous green worm, but then it looks like it's wearing this on, like, a hood. Or, like, a stocking cap.
Yeah,
So stupid.
It is. So that's the reason that she couldn't transportalize all the way to the bottom of the tower, because there's a worm sitting on the bottom.
And her grandfather would not take kindly to her moving it.
Yes.
And then there's someone pestering her, even though she logged off.
Hmm.
And their handle is carcinogeneticist, and the first thing they have to say is, "Hi again, idiot," in all caps.
Yeah. So they are on her list of trolls.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which, on the surface reading, if you haven't heard of Homestuck before, just means, like, mean people on the internet.
You're right.
So that's all I'm reading into it. Purposely right now.
It works that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it works just fine. That's how I read it, too. Except that they, like, mysteriously... I mean, I guess not except, but, like, this troll happens to, like, know things about the future. It's
yeah, like... so they seem to have the same precognition that she has. But they are warning her not to set whatever she's setting in motion they're saying, "Don't do this. Like, don't be stupid."
Mm-hmm.
And then she blocks them.
Then she blocks them. But, like, so I know who this is.
Uh-huh.
So then after that, we get some coordinates on this kiosk inside the lab that Rose is looking at. And it's SN hub grid, and then it gives coordinates. And so I looked those up, and Google conveniently shows you that it's actually on the location of a place called Rainbow Falls, like an actual waterfall. In Adirondack Park in Parrishville, upstate New York, which incidentally is 2 hours out of the Ottawa city center, which I thought was funny.
Like Ottawa, Canada?
Ottawa, Canada. Yeah, she's way up there.
Oh, she's like my neighbor.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's like, yeah, that's as close as Kingston is, which is close.
Nice.
Yeah. I keep forgetting how close America is. It's nearby.
We do share a border.
Yes, but it just feels like it's 6 hours away, but it's actually 2 hours away.
Yeah, they're just anything remotely interesting is at least 6 hours away because
right.
It's right. That's why it always boggles my mind that like there is anything in Canada, because the further north you go in the U.S. is just like decreasingly civilization. Like upstate New York is like the boonies.
Right.
Maine is the boonies. Vermont is like the gun culture is strong in Vermont because everybody shoots for their food, kind of thing.
Oh.
Yeah. Not everybody. The yuppies don't, but then everybody up in like North Vermont.
Right.
Right.
All right.
I believe we get one more R slur slipped in there just for good measure.
Of course. But then Rose, now back on Rose, she goes to the center.
Did you call her Rapid Rose?
No, I didn't.
What did you call her?
I said I stuttered Rose.
Oh, okay.
Rose goes to the center of the lab, and there is what looks like a transportalizer pad. And so she dumps all her stuff out, and the cat lands on the pad, and immediately gets transportalized, but Rose just thinks that the cat has been evaporated.
She goes ashes to ashes, I guess.
Yeah, and she isn't too sad about it, which is a bit concerning.
I would consider that there may be layers to that reaction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because she didn't really want the cat taxidermied in the first place.
Right. But that doesn't mean she doesn't care for the cat.
Sure.
Anyway.
Anyway, so Rose, she figures out that she can just, like, flip a switch on her fetch modus, and she doesn't have to uproot the tree, quote-unquote, every time she accesses it, which is what's been happening. Every time she selects an item, everything falls out.
And she makes a real angry face. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. But now she can just, like, use it normally.
Yeah. And then we end on a cliffhanger because, although, I mean, I feel like at this point in this comic, like, those countdowns aren't nearly quite such cliffhangers.
Uh-huh.
Like, we know nothing bad is necessarily going to happen, but, like, something interesting is certainly going to happen when this timer counts down.
So there's a plaque on the wall, and it says that this lab is unestablished and, like, there's a row of zeros, and at the end there's 3 minutes and 14 seconds left. Which is a funny gag, but also an indicator that something's going to happen.
Yep, like, probably it's going to blow up. And she's just
Probably.
like, well, I hope there's an invitation waiting for me when I open my computer.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll find out next week.
We will.
Okay, so now we should do listener questions.
Let's.
So if you want to ask us a question, you can send us an ask on Tumblr. We are hamsteakpodcast.tumblr. You can send us a tweet reply thing. We are hamsteakpodcast on Twitter. And you can email us, which is hamsteakpodcast@gmail.com. We're pretty consistent.
Yeah. Our first question comes from Anonymous, who asks, for Lydia, were you into Homestuck shipping in your fandom days? And if yes, are you still into shipping?
No, unfortunately, my heart is, like, small and shriveled and dead, and I really have never been into shipping for anything.
I don't think that means your heart is small and shriveled and dead. I think that shipping is a specific behavior that some people just aren't wired for. Like, I've never been into it. It's just never, like, crossed my mind as part of how I engage in media.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's true. I think one thing that's been interesting about the sort of, like, post-Homestuck era of my life is that, like, a lot of the people that I still follow, like, online and, like, the sphere of influence that I'm in now has very much been shaped by, like, the people who I followed who, like, when they were into Homestuck, like, weren't shippers. Do you know what I mean?
That's really interesting.
Yeah, because it's a very specific kind of person. Or not a super specific kind of person, but...
No, yeah, I think all kinds of people can be into it, but it's just, like... I guess just, like, having no, like, feeling about it just kind of alienates me from people who have a lot of feelings about it.
I agree, yeah, I feel very alienated from the practice.
Mm-hmm. And, for me, I don't know, for me it feels kind of like, in some way, it is making characters out to be people who, when they're not characters, and the relationships are part of the story. They're not, like, part of this person's life.
Right, yeah, yeah, that's true. It's this very interesting practice of taking characters out of the story in which they were created and doing totally different things with them. And, like, I don't know, that gets done in a lot of, like, fan work, but...
Yeah. Although I guess I should say that, like, probably the one exception to my not being interested in shipping thing was in the last 2 seasons of Legend of Korra, when I felt it was being strongly suggested that Korra and Asami would end up together. And I just started feeling very attached to the idea. And they did. I was right. So I feel vindicated.
They're just such a good couple. Like, that was so well done.
It was. So that's the thing. Like, it wasn't... Like, I don't feel like that was shipping like a lot of people practice it, because I was actually just picking up on, like, the author's intention.
Right.
With where the story was going. And I felt a lot of, like, connection to hoping that I was correct about that. But it wasn't, like... If it hadn't happened, I would have been upset, but I wouldn't have been, like, still upset about it now.
Right. You know, it's kind of how I feel about... I really think that Finn and Poe should get together in Star Wars. Mm-hmm. I think that would be a great move. I think they would work well as a couple. I think it'd be really entertaining to watch. Yeah. I think the chemistry's totally there.
Yeah.
I think it should happen. Like, the timing is right. Yeah. Like, you know, audiences would respond well. I'm pretty attached to that idea, but I don't actually spend a bunch of time thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless somebody, like, mentions them and mentions Star Wars and it's an appropriate crowd, and then I'll be like, no, but you're on that train with me, right? So I guess, like, I get where it comes from, but sadly I am not a shipper. Which, I mean, I guess this was us doing a lot of talking about how we're not shippers, which isn't to say, like, oh, shippers are scum and they're, like, bad at enjoying media. Like,
it's just, like, it's a different way of engaging with media, which is totally fine.
Yeah, it's totally cool.
So, no Homestuck ships for you?
No, I don't really have Homestuck ships.
Okay. So the second part of this question was for me, and it's who's my favorite character so far. Not who's my carrot favorite. Who's my favorite character so far? I've got to say that Jade has really won me over so far with this small amount that we've met her. She is adorable and sweet and genuine, and mysterious too. So that's my answer.
Awesome. Yeah,
I also like Wandering Vagabond a lot, because he was a lot of fun last time.
He's fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have another question from Anonymous.
Oh my gosh, you guys sent so many.
Probably a different person.
Okay.
This one is, Dear Hamsteak, I listened to 4 1/2 episodes of your podcast, and since it was such an excellent reminder of what a pedantic train wreck this comic is, and what an abject waste of my time the fandom has been, I will not listen any further. See you in hell, Anon. P.S. P.S. Lydia, please try to stop ruining all the twists for Alex.
Aww.
So I just wanted to say off the bat that I don't feel that Lydia has ruined any twists for me. Kind of getting minor spoilers is part of my job here, and also I'm asking for them. But I'm also asking for not anything that could spoil more than just like someone's name or something. And maybe we've been cutting that out pretty well, so people aren't realizing that Lydia gets very flustered sometimes when I say something that hits too close to the mark. So I think we're all good in that department. So do you want to address the first part of that question, Lydia?
Yeah, so I absolutely agree that, this comic can be pretty pedantic. It gets more so later on. If you don't really enjoy the characters, you'll get tired of it really quick, because I agree that Hussey's narrative voice can be plenty insufferable.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I'm sorry you don't like the comic.
So our final question is from regular listener Dwellington.
Hi.
So he has 2 questions for us. The first part is, would you recommend any other webcomics? Oh boy.
I just steepled my fingers and stared into the distance for a second.
I'm gonna see how many comics I follow. You go ahead.
You want me to just recommend some? I'll just...
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I never follow more comics than I can, remember to type in the URLs for. And if I start forgetting to type in the URL, then I guess it wasn't sustaining my attention. So whatever's off the top of my head is whatever I find good enough to read, generally. So what I'm following right now is Octopus Pie. Is totally unrelated to this comic, but is also sort of by turns serious and dramatic and interesting and very funny and silly. It has sort of an absurd bent to it, but it's it's a very slice of life, 20-somethings in New York City, 20-something weirdos in New York City trying to kind of make it work. And growing up, do you know?
Yeah. I think we've talked about it on the show before.
We have.
But yeah, Octopus Pie is a really good comic.
It's great. It doesn't update super frequently, but I'm totally okay with that.
So I follow a lot of comics. The ones that are still up, that are currently updating, that spring to mind now that I have my list of them before me. Cucumber Quest is a very good comic. It is kind of set up as a very classic kind of RPG quest, where there's an evil force that's trying to take over the world, and there's a hero who's fated to stop that, and the hero makes friends and battles bosses and travels to different kingdoms, but not that early on, but kind of halfway through where we are so far, which is, I think, about 700 pages, we figure out that everything is not quite as it seems, and this cycle of fate and light and darkness is not as straightforward as it looks. And it's very interesting. The story is very interesting, but it's also written very well. The dialogue is really cute, and the art is the softest, cutest storybook kind of beautiful art that exists. It's by Gigi Digi, who is a very good artist and a very good writer of this story.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
So I read Cucumber Quest 2, and just to set up your expectations, it is all ages, which should not detract from your... If you have any tolerance at all for all ages comics, it 110% holds up. And also the coloring in particular. Like, GGDG is so good at color, it hurts.
Yeah. Like, every page looks like a cake that I want to eat. That's how I can describe it right now. So the second part of Dwellington's question is, what are our favorite books? And personally, I'm just going to go ahead and say the Mars trilogy by Kim Stanley Robinson. I recommended these to Lydia a couple years ago, and she agrees that they're good. These are kind of I want to say, the pinnacle of Mars fiction. They're very science-heavy, but also a lot of other field-heavy. No, this is a terrible, terrible explanation.
It's a drama set on the early colonization moving into the terraforming political organization and further transformation of Mars.
Yes.
The characters are all really interesting.
Yes.
You're right, it delves into a lot of different scientific disciplines very competently. It does
scientific
psychology.
And political and, yeah.
Right, it does a lot of politics, and it does them pretty well.
Yeah.
Not pretty well, it does them really well, and very interestingly.
Yeah, it's great, it's a great work of writing. And Kim Stanley Robinson is a great writer, and I would recommend pretty much anything that he's done.
Okay, so, oh gosh, if I had to pick one... I mostly only read comics, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't read a ton, period. But a book that I read relatively recently that I thought was pretty good. Let me look up the title.
I mean, it could be a print comic, because webcomics aren't taken.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, I know there's, print comics that are good, but one of my favorite books, a book that I would absolutely pick up and read again, it's called Invisible Sith. Let's try that again.
Invisible Sith. It's a Star Wars book.
It's the Invisible Sith. No, it's called Invisible Cities, and it's by Italo Calvino, and it's basically an excuse to describe a lot of not necessarily increasingly, but just describe a lot of fantastical cities in sort of poetic prose, and talk a little bit about memory and place.
Whoa. That sounds really cool.
It's super interesting. It's a really great read. It's barely fiction, but it's not really nonfiction either. It's basically prose poetry, but it's really, really good.
Nice. All right, so I think that brings our questions to a close.
That it do. Thanks so much for sending so many questions, you guys.
Yes, thank you so much. That's really, really fun. It's a lot of fun for us. If you'd like to contact us individually, you can find me on the internet at leafcrunch.tumblr.com or on Twitter at crunchleaf.
And I'm Brickchip on both Twitter and Tumblr, but I don't know, my my personal I use the internet as a diary, so it's going to be embarrassing. But I mean, you could follow me if you really wanna.
Yes. I did, and I don't regret it.
Yeah, well, I used to post content. Now it's just dog pictures and me complaining about my life.
That is content.
Thanks.
Don't apologize for yourself.
You're right, I won't. I'm not apologizing for myself. I'm just saying, it's definitely not for everyone's... I feel like the fact that I make a podcast makes it sound like I'm the kind of person who traffics in, actual content, but, I don't. I literally just complain. And that's it.
And that's the show.
No.
Yeah, that's the theme song.
Okay, so what we're going to read next week, if you want to follow along at home, is going to be pages 2770 through 2879, which is going to bring us up just shy of 1,000 pages read in total. And it's also going to be our 10th episode. Woo.
Yay.
Things that actually happen in that time span are, I didn't have time to look up most of it, but I do know that John's dad, we find out where he is, and he's doing some interesting things. He's kind of sticking up for himself.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good time.
Good. Well, see you next week, everyone.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.